Is thy face like thy mother's, my fair child? Ada, sole daughter of my house and heart? When last I saw thy young blue eyes they smiled, and then we parted, not as now we part, but with a hope, awaking with a start. The waters heave around me, and on high the winds lift up their voices, I depart. Whither I know not, but the hours gone by, when Albion's lessening shores could grieve or glad mine eye. Once more upon the waters, yet once more, and the waves bound beneath me as their steed, that knows his rider, welcome to their roar, swift be their guidance, wheresoe'er it may lead. Though the strained mast should quiver as a reed, and the rent canvas fluttering strew the gale, still must I on, for I am as a weed, flung from the rock on ocean's foam to sail. Where the surge may sweep, the tempest's breath prevail. In my youth's summer I did sing of one, the wandering outlaw of his own dark mind. Again I seize the theme, then but begun, and bear it with me as the rushing wind bears the clouds onwards. In that tale I find the furrows of long thought and dried up tears, which, ebbing, leave a sterile track behind, o'er which all the heavily the journeying years plod the last sand of life, where not a flower appears. Since my young days of passion, joy, or pain, perchance my heart and harp have lost a string, and both may jar. It may be that in vain I would essay as I have sung to sing. Yet though a dreary strain to this I cling, so that it wean me from the weary dream of selfish grief or gladness, so it fling forgetfulness around me, it shall seem to me, though to none else, a not ungrateful theme. He who grown aged in this world of woe, in deeds not years, piercing the depths of life, so that no wonder awaits him nor below can love or sorrow, fame, ambition, strife, cut to his heart again with the keen knife of silent sharp endurance, he can tell why thought seeks refuge in lone caves yet rife with airy images and shapes which dwell, still unimpaired though old in soul's haunted shell. 'Tis to create, and in creating live, a being more intense that we endow with form our fancy, gaining as we give the life we image, even as I do now. What am I? Nothing, but not so art thou, soul of my thought, with whom I traverse earth, invisible but gazing as I glow, mixed with thy spirit, blended with thy birth, and feeling still with thee in my crushed feelings' dearth. Yet must I think less wildly, I have thought too long and darkly, till my brain became its own eddy boiling, and o'erwrought a whirling gulf of fantasy and flame. And thus untaught in youth, my heart to tame, my springs of life were poisoned. 'Tis too late. Yet am I changed, though still enough the same, in strength to bear what time cannot abate, and feed on bitter fruits, without accusing fate. But who can view the ripened rose, nor seek to wear it? Who can curiously behold the smoothness and the sheen of beauty's cheek, nor feel the heart can never all grow old? Who can contemplate fame through clouds unfold the stars which rises over her steep, nor climb, herald once more within the vortex rolled, on with the giddy circle, chasing time, yet with a nobler aim than in his youth's fond prime? But soon he knew himself the most unfit of men to herd with man with whom he held little in common, untaught to submit his thoughts to others, though his soul was quelled in youth by his own thoughts. Still uncompelled, he would not yield dominion of his mind to spirits against whom his own rebelled, proud though in desolation, which could find a life within itself to breathe without mankind. Where rose the mountains, there to him were friends, where rolled the ocean, thereon was his home. Where a blue sky and growing clime extends, he had the passion and the power to roam. The desert, forest, cavern, breakers' foam, were unto him companionship. They spake a mutual language clearer than the tome of his land's tongue, which he would oft forsake for nature's pages, glassed by sunbeams on the lake. Like the Chaldean, he could watch the stars till he had peopled them with beings bright, as their own beams and earth-born jars, and human frailties were forgotten quite. Could he have kept his spirit to that flight, he had been happy. But this clay will sink, its spark immortal, envying it the light to which it mounts, as if to break the link that keeps us from yon heaven which woos us to its brink. But in man's dwellings he became a thing, restless and worn, and stern and wearisome, drooped as a wild-born falcon with a clipped wing, to whom the boundless air alone were home. Then came his fit again, which to overcome, as eagerly the barred-up bird will beat his breast and beak against his wiry dome, till the blood tinge his plumage, so the heat of his impeded soul would through his bosom eat. Stop, for thy tread is on an empire's dust, an earthquake's spoil is sepulchred below, in the spot marked with no colossal bust, nor column trophied for triumphal show, none. But the moral's truth tells simpler so, as the ground was before, thus let it be, how the red rain hath made the harvest grow, and is this all the world has gained by thee, thou first and last of fields, king-making victory? If not o'er one fallen dispo, boast no more. In vain fair cheeks were furrowed with hot tears, for Europe's flowers, long rooted up before the trampler of her vineyards, in vain years of death, depopulation, bondage, fears, have all been born and broken by the accord of roused up millions. All that most endears glory is when the myrtle wreathes a sword, such as Harmodius drew on Athens' tyrant lord. There was a sound of revelry by night, and Belgium's capital had gathered then, her beauty and her chivalry and bright, the lamp shone o'er fair women and brave men. 1,000 hearts beat happily, and when music arose with its voluptuous swell, soft eyes looked love to eyes which spake again, and all went merry as a marriage bell. But hush, hark, a deep sound strikes like a rising knell. Did ye not hear it? No, 'twas but the wind, or the car rattling o'er the stony street. On with the dance, let joy be unconfined, no sleep till morn, when youth and pleasure meet, to chase the glowing hours with flying feet. But hark, that heavy sound breaks in once more, as if the clouds its echo would repeat, and nearer, clearer, deadlier than before. Arm, arm, it is, the cannon's opening roar. Within a windowed niche of that high hall sat Brunswick's fated chieftain. He did hear that sound the first amidst the festival, and caught its tone with death's prophetic ear. And when they smiled because he deemed it near, his heart more truly knew that peal too well, which stretched his father on a bloody pier, and roused the vengeance blood alone could quell. He rushed into the field, and foremost fighting fell. Ah, then and there was hurrying to and fro, and gathering tears and tremblings of distress, and cheeks all pale, which but an hour ago blushed at the praise of their own loveliness. And there were sudden partings such as press the life from out young hearts, and choking sighs, which ne'er might be repeated. Who could guess, if ever more should meet those mutual eyes, since upon night so sweet, such awful morn could rise? And there was mounting in hot haste the steed, the mustering squadron, and the clattering car, when pouring forward with impetuous speed, and swiftly forming in the ranks of war, and the deep thunder peal on peal afar, and near the beat of the alarming drum, roused up the soldier ere the morning star, while thronged the citizens with terror dumb, or whispering with white lips, the foe, they come, they come. And wild and high the Camerons gathering rose, the war note of Lochiel, which Albion's hills have heard, and heard too have her Saxon foes, how in the noon of night that pibroch thrills, savage and shrill, but with the breath which fills their mountain pipes, so fill the mountaineers with the fierce native daring which instills the stirring memory of 1,000 years, and Evan's, Donald's fame rings in each clansman's ears. And Ardennes waves above them her green leaves, dewy with nature's teardrops as they pass, grieving if aught inanimate e'er grieves, or the unreturning brave, alas. Ere evening to be trodden like the grass, which now beneath them but above shall grow, in its next verdure when this fiery mass of living valor rolling on this foe, and burning with high hope, shall moulder cold and low. Last noon beheld them full of lusty life, last eve in beauty's circle proudly gay. The midnight brought the signal sound of strife, the morn the marshalling in arms, the day battle's magnificently stern array. The thunder clouds close o'er it, which, when rent, the earth is covered thick with other clay, with which her own clay shall cover, heaped and pent, rider and horse, friend, foe, in one red burial blent. Their praise is hymned by loftier harps than mine, yet one I would select from that proud throng, partly because they blend me with his line, and partly that I did his sire some wrong, and partly that bright names will hollow song, and his was of the bravest, and when showered, the death bolt's deadliest, the thin files along, even where the thickest of war's tempest lowered, they reached no nobler breast than thine, young gallant Howard. There have been tears and breaking hearts for thee, and mine were nothing, had I such to give. But when I stood beneath the fresh green tree, which living waves where thou didst cease to live, and saw around me the wide field revive, with fruits and fertile promises, and the spring come forth her works of gladness to contrive, with all her reckless birds upon the wing, I turned from all she brought, to those she could not bring. They mourn but smile at length, and smiling mourn. The tree will wither long before it falls. The whole drives on, though mast and sail be torn. The roof tree sinks, but moulders on the hall. In massy hoariness the ruined wall stands when its wind-worn battlements are gone. The bars survive the captive they enthrall. The day drags through, those storms keep out the sun, and thus the heart will break, yet brokenly live on. Even as a broken mirror, which the glass in every fragment multiplies and makes 1,000 images of one that was the same, and still the more it breaks. And thus the heart will do, which not forsakes, living in shattered guise, and still and cold, and bloodless with its sleepless sorrow aches, yet withers on till all without is old, showing no visible sign, for such things are untold. I live not in myself, but I become portion of that around me, and to me high mountains are a feeling, but the hum of human cities' torture I can see. Nothing to loathe in nature save to be a link reluctant in a fleshly chain, clasped among creatures when the soul can flee, and with the sky, the peak, the heaving plain of ocean or the stars mingle, and not in vain. And thus I am absorbed, and this is life. I look upon the peopled desert past, as on a place of agony and strife, wherefore some sin to sorrow I was cast, to act and suffer, but remount at last, with a fresh pinion which I feel to spring, though young, yet waxing vigorous as the blast, which it would cope with on delighted wing, spurning the clay-cold bonds which round our being cling. And when at length the mind shall be all free from what it hates in this degraded form, reft of its carnal life, save what shall be existent happier in the fly and worm, when elements to elements conform, and dust is as it should be, shall I not feel all I see, less dazzling but more warm, the bodily's thought, the spirit of each spot, of which even now I share at times the immortal lot? Are not the mountains, waves, and skies a part of me and of my soul, and I as I of them? Is not the love of these deep in my heart? With a pure passion should I not condemn all objects, if compared with these, and stem a tide of suffering rather than forego such feelings for the hard and worldly phlegm of those whose eyes are only turned below, gazing upon the ground with thoughts which dare not glow? Ye stars, which are the poetry of heaven, if in your bright leaves we would read the fate of men and empires, 'tis to be forgiven that in our aspirations to be great, our destinies overleap their mortal state, and claim a kindred with you, for ye are a beauty and a mystery, and create in us such love and reverence from afar, that fortune, fame, power, life have named themselves a star. All heaven and earth are still, though not in sleep, but breathless as we grow when feelings most, and silent as we stand in thoughts too deep. All heaven and earth are still, from the high host of stars to the lulled lake and mountain coast, all is concentrated in a life intense, where not a beam, nor air, nor leaf is lost, but hath a part of being and a sense of that which is all creator and defense. Then stirs the feeling infinite so felt in solitude, where we are least alone, a truth which through our being then doth melt, and purifies from self, it is a tone, the soul and source of music, which makes known eternal harmony, and sheds a charm, like to the fabled Cytherea's zone, binding all things with beauty, 'twould disarm the spectre death, had he substantial power to harm. Now where the quick Rhone thus has cleft his way, The mightiest of the storms has taken his stand, for here not one but many make their play, and fling their thunderbolts from hand to hand. Flashing and cast around of all the band, the brightest through these parted hills hath forked his lightnings, as if he did understand that in such gaps as desolation worked, there the hot shaft would blast whatever therein lurked. Sky, mountains, river, winds, lake, lightnings, ye, with nights and clouds and thunder and a soul, to make these felt and feeling well may be, things that have made me watchful. The far roll of your departing voices is the knoll of what in me is sleepless if I rest. But where of ye, O tempests, is the goal? Are ye like those within the human breast? Or do ye find at length, like eagles, some high nest? Could I embody and embosom now that which is most within me, could I wreak my thoughts upon expression, and thus throw soul, heart, mind, passions, feelings, strong or weak, all that I would have sought, and all I seek, bear now, feel, and yet breathe into one word, and that one word were lightning, I would speak. But as it is, I live and die unheard, with a most voiceless thought, sheathing it as a sword. I have not loved the world, nor the world me. I have not flattered its rank breath, nor vowed to its idolatries a patient knee, nor coined my cheek to smiles, nor cried aloud. In worship of an echo in the crowd, they could not deem me one of such. I stood among them, but not of them, in a shroud of thoughts which were not their thoughts, and still could, had I not filled my mind, which thus itself subdued. I have not loved the world, nor the world me, but let us part fair foes, I do believe, though I have found them not, that there may be words which are things, hopes which will not deceive, and virtues which are merciful, nor weave snares for the failings I would also deem, or others' griefs that some sincerely grieve, that two or one are almost what they seem, that goodness is no name, and happiness is no dream. My daughter, with thy name this song begun. My daughter, with thy name thus much shall end. I see thee not, I hear thee not, but none can be so wrapped in thee. Thou art the friend to whom the shadows of far years extend. Albeit my brow thou never shouldst behold, my voice shall with thy future visions blend, and reach into thy heart when mine is cold, a token and a tone, even from thy father's mold. To aid thy mind's development, to watch the dawns of little joys, to sit and see, almost thy very growth, to view thee catch, knowledge of objects, wonders yet to thee, to hold thee lightly on a gentle knee, and print on thy soft cheek a parent's kiss. This it would seem was not reserved for me, yet this was in my nature, as it is. I know not what is there, yet something like to this.